They told you to take vitamin D for strong bones. Your doctor prescribed it. You've been taking it religiously, maybe 1,000, 2,000, even 5,000 IU per day. But what if I told you that taking vitamin D alone might actually be making your bones weaker, not stronger, and could be depositing calcium in your arteries instead of your bones, increasing your risk of heart attack and stroke? And there are two other nutrients, when combined with vitamin D in the right ratios, that transform it from potentially dangerous to genuinely bone building, capable of reversing bone loss and preventing fractures, even if you're 70, 80, or older. If you're over 60 and want to stay strong, healthy, and look younger, this video is for you. And most doctors don't know about this critical combination because medical education focuses on single nutrients, not the synergistic relationships between them that determine whether they help or harm. Why? Because while everyone's been told to supplement vitamin D, taking it alone without these two cofactors is like putting gasoline in your car without oil. The engine might run temporarily, but you're creating damage that will catch up with you. And if you're over 60, every supplement choice either builds genuinely strong bones in the right places or creates dangerous calcium deposits in all the wrong places. Today, I'm going to reveal exactly what these two critical nutrients are that must be taken with vitamin D, why this combination is scientifically proven to reverse bone loss faster than vitamin D alone ever could, and the exact dosages and ratios that produce measurable improvements in bone density within months. Stay with me until the end because I'll give you the precise protocol, the best forms of each nutrient, and the one timing strategy that maximizes absorption and bone building effects. But before I expose why taking vitamin D alone is potentially dangerous and what you must combine it with, if you're serious about building genuinely strong bones and protecting your cardiovascular system simultaneously, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for daily evidence-based strategies that go beyond superficial advice and tell you what actually works at the biochemical level. And comment below, are you currently taking vitamin D, and did your doctor tell you about these critical cofactors? Let's talk about what you're missing. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth about vitamin D supplementation that most doctors don't understand. Vitamin D is absolutely essential for bone health. That part is true. Without adequate vitamin D, your body cannot absorb calcium from your diet. You could eat calcium-rich foods all day long, but without vitamin D, that calcium passes through your system unused. Vitamin D transforms into calcitriol, the active hormone form, which enables intestinal cells to absorb calcium and signals bone cells to incorporate calcium into bone matrix. So far, this all makes sense, and this is where most medical advice stops. Take vitamin D, absorb calcium, build bones. But here's the critical part they're missing. Vitamin D increases calcium absorption and raises blood calcium levels, but vitamin D alone cannot direct where that calcium goes. Without the right cofactors, the calcium circulates in your bloodstream and deposits wherever it lands, which is often your arteries, heart valves, kidneys, and soft tissues, not your bones. This is called the calcium paradox. People taking high-dose vitamin D supplements often have elevated blood calcium but continuing bone loss, while simultaneously developing arterial calcification that increases heart attack and stroke risk. Multiple studies have found that vitamin D supplementation alone, without proper cofactors, does not significantly reduce fracture risk and may actually increase cardiovascular events. One major study followed over 2,000 elderly individuals taking vitamin D supplements for 5 years and found no reduction in fractures and a troubling increase in arterial stiffness markers. The researchers were puzzled until they looked at cofactor status and realized that without vitamin K2 and magnesium, the vitamin D was raising calcium levels but not directing calcium into bones. So what are the two essential nutrients that must be taken with vitamin D to actually reverse bone loss and protect your cardiovascular system? My top recommendation for patients concerned about osteoporosis and bone health is scientifically proven but rarely prescribed together. Vitamin K2 and magnesium combined with vitamin D3 in specific ratios. Now, before you think this sounds complicated or expensive, let me explain exactly why this trio is the only scientifically valid approach to bone health after 60, and why taking vitamin D without these cofactors is not just ineffective, but potentially dangerous. Let's start with vitamin K2, the most overlooked and perhaps most critical bone nutrient. Vitamin K2 is completely different from vitamin K1, which is involved in blood clotting. Vitamin K2 activates two critical proteins, osteocalcin and matrix GLA protein. Osteocalcin is produced by bone cells and acts like a magnet, pulling calcium out of your bloodstream and binding it into bone matrix where it belongs. But osteocalcin only works when it's activated by vitamin K2. Without K2, osteocalcin remains inactive and cannot bind calcium to bones. You end up with plenty of calcium circulating but not being deposited into bone tissue. Matrix GLA protein, or MGP, does the opposite. It prevents calcium from depositing in soft tissues like arteries, kidneys, and heart valves. MGP acts like a calcium traffic cop, keeping calcium out of places where it causes damage. But MGP also requires vitamin K2 to activate. Without adequate K2, MGP remains inactive and cannot prevent arterial calcification. This is why vitamin K2 is absolutely essential when taking vitamin D. Vitamin D raises calcium levels. Vitamin K2 directs that calcium into bones and prevents it from depositing in arteries. Studies show that people with high vitamin K2 intake have significantly stronger bones and dramatically lower rates of arterial calcification and cardiovascular disease. One landmark study in the Netherlands followed over 4,800 people for 10 years and found that those with the highest vitamin K2 intake had a 50% reduction in cardiovascular death and significantly better bone density compared to those with low K2 intake, even when vitamin D and calcium intake were similar. The difference was vitamin K2's ability to direct calcium properly. Another groundbreaking study specifically looked at postmenopausal women with osteoporosis taking vitamin D and calcium with or without vitamin K2. After 3 years, the group taking K2 showed measurable increases in bone mineral density and significant reductions in fracture risk, while the group taking only vitamin D and calcium showed minimal improvement and continued bone loss. The researchers concluded that vitamin K2 is essential for converting supplemental calcium into actual bone tissue rather than dangerous soft tissue deposits. Now let's talk about magnesium, the second critical cofactor that's almost always overlooked. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, and at least a dozen of those are directly related to bone formation and vitamin D metabolism. First and most critically, magnesium is required to convert vitamin D from its storage form into calcitriol, the active hormone form that actually works. Your kidneys contain an enzyme called 1-alpha hydroxylase that performs this conversion, and this enzyme is absolutely dependent on magnesium. Without adequate magnesium, you can take all the vitamin D you want, and your body simply cannot activate it. You'll have high levels of storage vitamin D in your blood tests, but low levels of active vitamin D, meaning it's not actually working to build bones. But magnesium does even more for bone health. It's a structural component of bone mineral itself. Incorporate it directly into the hydroxyapatite crystal that gives bones their hardness. About 60% of your body's magnesium is stored in bones. And when magnesium is deficient, bones become more brittle and prone to fracture, even if calcium levels are adequate. Magnesium also regulates parathyroid hormone, which controls calcium metabolism. When magnesium is low, parathyroid hormone becomes dysregulated and actually pulls calcium out of bones, even when dietary calcium is adequate. Your bones get weaker while blood calcium rises, creating the perfect storm for both osteoporosis and arterial calcification. Studies show that magnesium supplementation improves bone mineral density and reduces fracture risk, independent of calcium and vitamin D. But when combined with vitamin D and K2, the effects are synergistic and far more powerful. One study on elderly women with osteoporosis found that those taking magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K2 together showed a 6% increase in bone mineral density over 2 years, while those taking calcium and vitamin D alone showed no improvement or continued decline. Fracture rates were 70% lower in the combination group. And here's something most people don't realize. Up to 80% of people are deficient in magnesium, and up to 97% are deficient in vitamin K2, while most people are taking vitamin D supplements. This creates a dangerous imbalance where vitamin D is raising calcium, but the cofactors needed to properly utilize that calcium are missing. You're essentially pouring calcium into a system that can't process it correctly. Now let's talk about the exact protocol that reverses bone loss and protects your cardiovascular system. For optimal bone building after 60, you need vitamin D3 at 2,000 to 4,000 IU daily, depending on your blood levels. Vitamin K2 in the MK-7 form at 100 to 200 micrograms daily. And magnesium at 300 to 400 milligrams daily for women and 400 to 500 milligrams for men. These must be taken together, ideally with a meal containing some fat, because both vitamin D and K2 are fat-soluble and require fat for absorption. Magnesium can be taken anytime, but is often best taken in the evening because it supports relaxation and sleep quality. The form of each nutrient matters critically. For vitamin D, use D3 cholecalciferol, not D2 ergocalciferol. D3 is the natural form your body produces from sunlight and is far more effective. For vitamin K2, use the MK7 form, not MK4. MK27 has a much longer half-life in your body, staying active for days rather than hours, meaning you can take it once daily and maintain consistent levels. For magnesium, use magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate, which are highly absorbable and gentle on the stomach. Avoid magnesium oxide, which is poorly absorbed and mainly works as a laxative. Here's what the research shows when you combine these three nutrients properly. A comprehensive study published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research followed postmenopausal women for 3 years. One group took calcium and vitamin D, the standard recommendation. Another group took calcium, vitamin D, K2, and magnesium. The standard group showed minimal changes in bone density and continued to experience fractures at expected rates. The combination group showed significant increases in bone mineral density at the hip and spine, reduced markers of bone breakdown, and a 60% reduction in fracture risk. Even more remarkably, the combination group showed improvements in arterial elasticity and reduced arterial calcification, meaning their cardiovascular health improved while their bones got stronger. You're not sacrificing one for the other, you're improving both simultaneously. Another study specifically looked at people with documented arterial calcification taking high-dose vitamin D. When vitamin D was given alone, arterial calcification worsened. When the same dose of vitamin D was given with vitamin K2 and magnesium, arterial calcification stabilized and in some cases reversed, while bone density improved. This proves that the cofactors are not just helpful, they're essential for safety. My patients over 60, 70, even 80, who switched from vitamin D alone to the complete trio of D3, K2, and magnesium report consistent improvements. Within 3 to 6 months, follow-up DEXA scans show measurable increases in bone mineral density, often for the first time in years. They report feeling steadier on their feet, less fear of falling, more confidence in their mobility. Their doctors are often surprised at the improvements because they've been told osteoporosis is irreversible. But it's not irreversible when you address the root cause, which is not just vitamin D deficiency, but the complete system of nutrients required for proper calcium metabolism. Beyond supplements, you can support this bone-building trio through food. Vitamin D comes from sun exposure. About 15 to 20 minutes of midday sun on arms and legs several times per week, and from fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Vitamin K2 is found in fermented foods like natto, a Japanese fermented soybean dish that's the richest dietary source, as well as grass-fed butter, cheese from grass-fed animals, and egg yolks from pastured chickens. Magnesium is abundant in leafy greens, nuts, seeds, legumes, and dark chocolate. However, most people over 60 cannot get adequate amounts from food alone due to soil depletion, reduced absorption with age, and inadequate dietary intake, which is why strategic supplementation is necessary. One critical warning: if you're taking blood thinners like warfarin, do not start vitamin K2 without consulting your doctor, as vitamin K can interact with these medications. However, newer blood thinners, like rivaroxaban and apixaban, do not interact with vitamin K2. And many doctors are now recognizing that vitamin K2 should actually be recommended even for people on warfarin, because it stabilizes vitamin K levels rather than causing fluctuations. But medical supervision is essential. For people with kidney disease, high-dose magnesium requires medical oversight because impaired kidneys cannot excrete excess magnesium properly. Start with lower doses and monitor with your doctor. For vitamin D, periodically check your blood levels to ensure you're in the optimal range of 40 to 60 ng per milliliter, which is higher than the minimum level to prevent deficiency, but optimal for bone building and overall health. The cost of this protocol is remarkably affordable: a month's supply of quality D3, K2, and magnesium supplements costs approximately $20 to $30 total, far less than the costs of osteoporosis medications like bisphosphonates, which can cost hundreds of dollars per month and come with serious side effects, including jaw necrosis and atypical fractures. You're getting better results with no side effects at a fraction of the cost. So if you're over 60 and serious about reversing bone loss, preventing fractures, protecting your cardiovascular system from dangerous calcium deposits, and addressing bone health the right way rather than the incomplete way most doctors recommend, then starting today, stop taking vitamin D alone. Instead, take 2,000 to 4,000 IU of vitamin D3 with 100 to 200 micrograms of vitamin K to MK7 and 300 to 500 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, all together with a meal containing fat. Do this daily for at least 6 months and request a follow-up DEXA scan to measure your bone density objectively. Track how you feel, your stability, your confidence in movement. I'm confident you'll see measurable improvements that prove you've finally given your body what it needs to build genuinely strong bones. If this revealed the critical combination that makes vitamin D actually work for bone health, subscribe for more evidence-based protocols that prioritize complete nutrition over incomplete mainstream advice. Comment below. Were you taking vitamin D alone? And are you ready to add the essential cofactors? Let's build a community of seniors with genuinely strong bones and healthy hearts.